Now, this concert, of course, also features Bruch's Violin Concerto No. 1, an absolute cornerstone of the romantic repertoire. How do you approach conducting a work that's so deeply beloved, pretty well known, and frequently performed?
I think like any work, but maybe even more so for a favourite, you have to approach it with an open mind and open ears, because there are many works that there are kind of traditions around because they've been played so many times, and I think as a conductor you always have to sort of ask yourself, is that really what the composer wanted? Like, is that in the score? And in the case of the Bruch, most of those traditions are they make a lot of sense with what's going on in the score. They're not at odds with what Bruch has written. So we don't have too much of that problem. But I think also for any concerto, it's really about being open to listening to the soloist and making sure that, when we get together, that the way that we're phrasing the melodies and the way that we're approaching it matches what the soloist is doing, because we don't want to be tied to some favourite recording because there's so many recordings, but just being really present in the moment so that we can make an interpretation together that's of this moment and makes sense together.
So I guess speaking of that, taking into consideration the voice of the composer and the voice of the soloist too, NZSO Concertmaster Vesa-Matti Leppänen and his 1755 Guadagnini violin will be joining the CSO for this performance for the Bruch. What do you think that Vesa, with his musical skill, his voice, the instrument's voice actually, what do you think those things will bring to the performance?
Well, I can't imagine how many times Vesa-Matti has probably accompanied this concerto as a concertmaster. And I think particularly, when you play a work in an orchestra, it gives you a totally different kind of understanding and relationship with the music. And that was sort of how I got interested in conducting, because I was sitting in the orchestra and I thought, I think it should go like this, or I wonder what would happen if you did this, and then I sort of migrated out the front so that I could play around with those decisions. And I'm sure that it's going to be the same for Vesa-Matti, that over all of those exposures of listening to so many different soloists play it, I wonder what would happen if I did this here, or I'm going to steal that thing from that person, and no, I didn't like that at all, so I'm going to do something different here. So I'm really interested to hear that sort of amalgam of influences and how that shapes him now stepping into that soloist role. And I understand it's his first time.
It is. I mean, he's such an incredibly experienced performer, and this is the first time that he's played it as a soloist with an orchestra, so we're again incredibly fortunate to capture that moment. And
it's my first time too.
There it is.
So I think that's what I'm excited about. It's both our first time doing this piece, and but again he brings all this history of having played the accompaniment part for it, so I'm really excited about what I'm going to learn from him and how this performance is going to take shape.
It's going to be an exciting thing to witness, actually.
It is, and I'm also, I think about his violin, the instrument, that, it was over 100 years old when this piece was written.
Yeah, that's pretty extraordinary.
That's just amazing.
That is staggering.
And to think, I'm sure he knows some of the people that have owned that instrument before him, and how many times has the Bruch been played on that instrument?
By that instrument.
And by whom and where. I love that idea of the history and, the sort of maybe the ghosts of past Bruch performances in the instrument. And what that's going to be.
It's fantastic. So I guess to close, there's so much to be excited about, but what are you personally most excited for with this program?
I think I'm most excited for, like me and Vesa-Matti and Claire and the orchestra, that the audience is going to get to experience a whole concert of firsts.
Yeah.
That, we've got a world premiere. Nobody has ever heard this Cinderella suite before. That's so cool. I love you know, the opportunity to be in the room while something is created for the first time ever.
Yeah.
You know, we've got the first associated with the Concerto that we talked about, and I'm sure for the vast majority of people it would be their first time hearing the Florence price and the player's first time playing it. And I think there's something very special about being in a concert hall for the first time.
Oh my God. Hearing
things you've never heard before, and that can only happen once.
Okay.
You know, you can only hear something for the first time once,
yep.
and it's so special, and that's what I'm excited about.
Yeah. This Saturday evening, Douglas Lilburn Auditorium, Christchurch Town Hall, 7:30 p.m. Can't wait.